All right, let's dive into something that's super personal, but also incredibly common for so many of us. We're talking about that intense, sometimes just overwhelming feeling of making eye contact. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you are not alone.
Yeah? Does that quote just hit you right where you live? Because that feeling, it's not an exaggeration, is it? For a lot of people, that's just daily life. It's this internal reality that's so hard to put into words for someone who just doesn't get it.
And let's be super clear here. We're not talking about some minor quirk. No. For so many people, just dealing with eye contact is a constant, exhausting mental marathon. So there's this huge gap, right, between what society expects and what's actually happening inside your head. Society has these unwritten rules baked right in. You make eye contact, you're honest, you're confident. But if you don't, well, people might think you're awkward or that you can't be trusted. The thing is, your reality couldn't be more different. You might be in this frantic manual mode, literally counting 1,000, 2, 1,000 in your head just to seem normal. And the result? You're just completely wiped out after a simple chat. So why? Why is it such a mental marathon? Well, it really boils down to this huge difference in how our brains can process things. Think manual transmission versus automatic. And this right here, this is the absolute core of it. For a neurotypical brain, a lot of these social rules, like how much eye contact to make, it's like driving an automatic car. It's just instinctive. It happens without a lot of thought. But for a neurodivergent brain, it can be like driving a stick shift for the very first time in heavy traffic. Every single move is manual. It's deliberate. You have to think about everything, and my gosh, is it draining. And that constant effort, it has a real long-term cost. Imagine trying to play a game where everyone else seems to know the rules, but you were never given the rule book. You're going to mess up. You're going to get things wrong over and over again and not even know why. All of that misinterpretation, that social friction, over time it creates this really deep and painful social wound. Okay, so what is actually going on inside the brain during all of this? This is so important to get. This is not a character flaw. It's not a personality defect. It's a flood, a literal data flood. So let's really sit with this question for a second. What if avoiding eye contact isn't you being rude or shy? What if it's actually a really smart coping mechanism? A necessary strategy your brain uses because it's just processing a massive amount of information all at once. Think about it. While you're forcing yourself to hold that normal eye contact, your brain is running multiple programs at the same time. It's trying to process the actual words being said. At the exact same time, it's decoding the tone of voice. And on top of that, it's analyzing every single tiny little micro-expression on their face. All of that together, it creates a massive cognitive load. That's the technical term for it. It's like trying to listen to 3 podcasts at once and understand what each one is saying. It is just way too much data for one processor to handle. And this is where we get to a really fascinating kind of backwards truth. The truth is, you actually listen better when you look away. Yeah, really. You're not tuning out. You're actually tuning in. You're deliberately cutting off one of the fire hoses, the visual one, to free up some bandwidth so you can actually hear and understand what the person is saying. Now, to get by in a world that, let's face it, doesn't always get it, a lot of people develop a survival strategy. You may have heard of it. It's called masking. It's this completely invisible effort, but believe me, it comes at a very, very high price. So what is masking? At its core, it's performing. It's this learned practice of pushing down your natural instincts and forcing yourself to act out neurotypical behaviors, like making constant eye contact, and you do it all to avoid those negative social consequences, to avoid being judged or misunderstood. And the cost of that performance it's stark. Think of your daily energy like a phone battery. Forcing yourself to wear that social mask all day long, it's like running 10 high-powered apps at once. It just drains your battery at an unbelievable rate. And this is what that actually looks like in real life. You manage to get through the day, you look totally fine at work or at that social gathering, but the performance isn't sustainable. You walk through your front door at the end of the day and just collapse. You have absolutely nothing left in the tank. It's a direct line to burnout and anxiety. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about a very specific situation that can get, really intense and often super confusing. Let's talk about what happens when attraction gets thrown into the mix. So you remember that whole brain on overload data flood thing we were just talking about? Okay, now take all of that and add the massive emotional spike of being attracted to someone. The entire system just gets cranked up to 11. And this is where the wires get totally crossed. In the neurotypical playbook, long intentional eye contact means I'm into you. But for someone whose brain is already flooded, that same intense feeling of interest can look like the complete opposite. It looks like nervous glances, darting your eyes away. Why? Because the feeling, the connection, is just, it's too much to handle head on. And here's the key thing to get. That nervous avoidance, it's not a sign of disinterest at all. In fact, sometimes it's a sign of profound interest. It means the connection is so strong that it's tipping over into sensory and emotional overload. Which brings us to what might be the single most important part of this whole conversation. This is where we get to reframe everything, to look at this through a completely different lens. So I want you to hear this, really hear this. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not rude. If you've ever been called those things, or if you've ever felt that way about yourself, those are just labels. They're labels from a world that was not built to understand the way your brain works. All that suffering, the exhaustion, those social wounds we talked about, that stuff doesn't come from something being wrong with you. It comes from the friction. It comes from trying to operate in a world that was designed for a totally different neurotype, a world that often punishes you for not fitting into its very specific box. So please, stop apologizing for how your brilliant mind works. Just stop. Stop wasting all that precious mental energy trying to cram yourself into a shape you were never meant to fit. And I want to leave you with this final question. What if real, genuine connection didn't have to be a staring contest? What if we, as a society, understood that connection can be expressed and felt in a million different ways, and that looking someone in the eye is just one of them, and maybe, just maybe, not even the most important one?